When are my Republican colleagues going to put up or shut up? I didn't come here for second place. I didn't come here for more excuses. I didn't come here to have the Speaker of the House assume the position and in 17 days pass a continuing resolution off the floor of this House through suspension of the rules.
Calm times on Capitol Hill. Welcome back to America Decides. That was Texas Republican Congressman Chip Roy, who was one of the 93 Republican House members to oppose Speaker Johnson's bill to avoid a government shutdown. Sabrina Rodriguez and Kadia Goba join us now. Sabrina is a national political reporter for the Washington Post. Kadia is a political reporter for Semafor. Thank you both so much for being here. We really appreciate it. So there's a lot of fallout on Capitol Hill based on Speaker Johnson's decision to move forward with this particular legislation. We'll begin with you. What's the political cost, if any, for the new speaker?
For the new speaker, the fact is at least he has a future now. He did this. We've averted a government shutdown at the moment. But, he worked with Democrats for this. He got the votes from Democrats. And what does that cost him with the more ultra-conservative side of his own party? And as we head to January, we have another battle coming. But at least for now, it's okay. The holidays, Thanksgiving, and that part is handled without having to deal with a shutdown.
Yeah, and these are some of the same concerns that brought a motion to vacate or ousted Kevin McCarthy. So obviously there's concern whether or not the same thing is going to happen with Johnson. But like a piece I wrote earlier today, I think he gets some grace because he has a lot of conservative backing and people just genuinely trust him. Even after the vote yesterday to pass the stopgap, many people said, I don't like this. I don't like the stopgap, but I'm still okay with the speaker, so time will tell. Chip Roy says they're coming back and they're going to fight, so we'll see in a few weeks how that turns out. Is
Congressman Roy angry about the speaker or angry just about the situation? Seems to be a bit of a difference.
It seems like right now it's about the situation. The reality is that Johnson just took the speakership and he doesn't have all the personal baggage and drama that Kevin McCarthy had on the job. So there isn't that level of animus between Johnson and that right flank of the party. Again, it's early. He's only been in this position for, days at this point. So, as time passes is what we'll kind of see where that grace period ends with that right flank of the party.
And are we learning anything about how January is going to look? Scott McFarland was saying that's going to be a pressure point. Is Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell building a relationship with the new speaker? Are Senate Republicans in any way simpatico with what's going on in the House?
That's not clear, but I can tell you there is a lot of work to be done. Republicans or Congress in general in the House, they can't even pass these appropriations bills. Remember, the big promise was to get 12 of them over the line. But there's been all kind of angst between now. We see the right flank and the moderates going to bat and opposing some of the rules on these bills. So before they even get to the Senate side for their conference, the House is going to have to pass these out of committee and then off the floor.
Let's turn to the 2024 presidential race. New Hampshire has now set its primary date for late January, but the Democrats still have South Carolina as their first formal primary. Does New Hampshire matter for the Democrats? Dean Phillips, the Minnesota congressman, is running in that race.
Yeah, he's definitely made it a focal point, and he, in his first event in New Hampshire was talking about how, Democrats should keep it in New Hampshire and they should be paying attention to voters in New Hampshire. But what we're seeing is the Biden campaign and administration and Democratic leaders at large saying, well, no, we're going to go with what was agreed with. We're going to go with what the Biden administration wants. Biden has said he's willing to not be on the ballot in New Hampshire to uphold the schedule that he wanted and endorsed. So at this point, it's a mixed bag of we're seeing, Dean Phillips really leaning in on New Hampshire to send a message in his long shot campaign, but the Biden administration holding on that they're not going to focus as much on New Hampshire.
What about on the Republican side in New Hampshire? Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie was in Washington today. He's making a play there. Does he have a chance to make a surprise in New Hampshire and get some traction, or is this really Trump country?
I think it's Trump country. I am surprised. Chris Christie has been, running as the former or the traditional Republican. We see that doesn't work, and we see this by some of the people that have dropped out, like Pence, like Tim Scott. So I think I don't know. I'm not really sure what his play is here, but I will point out that I know Hakeem Jeffries and a group of Democrats are going there to New Hampshire for a dinner. So I thought that was interesting because I hadn't noticed that. I'd seen that in previous presidential runs.
And Congressman Phillips of Minnesota, he's running in the Democratic primary, but President Biden faces challenges from the left, running as independents, Dr. Cornel West, and also Robert F. Kennedy Jr. RFK Jr. has just won some endorsements from some high-profile athletes like Aaron Rodgers and others. Could that have any impact on his campaign, which remains this outsider campaign, independent campaign?
Right now, it appears that Republicans are more concerned about RFK's run. When you look at who his top donors have been, it's historically Republican donors. And in terms of being on the campaign trail and talking to voters, it seems that, RFK's, vax, skeptic, anti-vax messaging resonates more with the Republican Party. And we've even seen, after he announced that he was moving from Democrat to an independent bid, Republicans kind of scrambling and saying, oh, we liked this when it was that he was running as a Democrat against Biden, but now we're kind of worried that we might lose some support.
And there was also some reporting from my colleague Shelby Talcott where Trump's camp is, strategizing around RFK. So I think if they're making a concerted effort, that there's some concern there.
And final thing, quickly from both of you, what's at the top of your notebook? What are you watching for the rest of the week?
It's voter apathy and the exhaustion that we're hearing from voters, whether it's about the government shutdown and it now not happening, but it pending, and kind of hearing them talk about candidates, which I think will be far more than 1 week that we deal with that.
I really want to know how much the fatigue in Congress is impacting members and if they're going to have this appetite to go after Johnson or cut up a little more when they come back after Thanksgiving.
I don't know how many more speaker votes we can do here in Washington. Oh, please. Sabrina Rodriguez and Kadia Goba, thank you very much for being here.